Hi everyone, it's Laura and I hope you're all doing well. Today I have a book haul for you, so I wanted to go through some of the new books that I have acquired recently that I'm really excited about. Naturally, as I always am excited about new books, I've been trying my hardest to not do loads of really big book hauls and just read the books that I have, but obviously that's not been completely successful. So I have some I honestly am really looking forward to all of these books here. So you can be the judge on how quickly I actually end up reading them. But let's just dive straight in. So the first one I have is The Cuticle Girl by Bart Van Es. So I did some work with the Costa Book Awards earlier in the year, I guess at the beginning of this year, and they have 5 different categories for fiction, first novel, non-fiction, children's books and poetry, and they have winners of each of those categories, and then they have an overall Book of the Year announcement. So The Cuticle Girl is a biography, and this was the winner of its category, and then also the winner of Book of the Year of 2018, and it sounded so amazing. When we were at the awards ceremony, we heard the author speak about it and the woman whose life this is about, and she was there on stage, and it sounded so incredible, and I actually couldn't wait to read it for myself. This is a story about a woman called Lene who was a child during World War II. Her Jewish parents left her with a family in Amsterdam in order to protect her during World War II, and that family are the relatives of Bart Van Es. So he sort of grew up knowing that Lene was this woman who was fostered by his family essentially in Amsterdam, and then at some point or other they fell out and they never spoke to her again. So this is part the story of Lene's life, I imagine, and also part Bart Van Es looking into his own family history and trying to understand what went on. So it's really interesting that there's such a close family connection between the author and the subject of the biography. So it sounds incredible. I can't wait to read that. Next here I have something else which I literally, oh my god, why isn't there more time in the day, in my life? Why can't I just read? Why can't that be my job? But I think this might be like my very next thing I pick up, and that's Lani by Max Porter. Jen Campbell and I went to a reading at the South Bank Centre, I think 2 weeks ago, where Max and some actors read aloud excerpts of this book. And it was such an amazing experience. I mean, Max Porter's writing is incredible anyway. He's the author of Grief is the Thing with Feathers, which came out, I think, 2 years ago now, and is just so amazing, emotional, poetic, and it almost genre-defying in a way. So that was a pretty incredible debut. And so Lani is also, from hearing these excerpts read, a pretty incredible follow-up as well. This is about a young boy called Lani, but it's more about his family, so we get perspectives from his mum, from his dad, and from other people in the village in which they live, and also this monstrous creature called Dead Papa Toothwort, who is watching the village as well. So it's got this very realistic angle to it, and also this massively abstract presence as well, which does feel a little bit similar to Grief, because there's Crow in that, who is sort of watching the family, but it sounds like it's going to be quite similar enough that you can tell it's written by the same person, but not like a repetition of that book. So I don't want to say too much about this book, because having seen the reading, there are some things I don't know whether they're spoilers or not, so until I've read it myself I don't want to talk about the plot in case massive things were given away at that reading and it would ruin it for you. But I don't think you'll have too long to wait, because I'm probably going to read it like later today or something. Now I have a couple of books that were lent to me by my friend Kate, and we do a little bit of a book swap now and again, which is quite fun. So she's lent me Once and Forever, the tales of Kenji Miyazawa, which she described as sort of being like, it's short stories but being like Aesop's fables. So these are Japanese short stories / fables about different animals, and she said it's just something which when you're reading it you don't necessarily feel like it makes a lot of sense, but you just think this is very beautiful and I like it. I don't know what it's about, but cool. So she recommended this to me, and yeah, so it sounds cool. Looking forward to getting to that. And on a completely different note as well, she lent me The Nix by Nathan Hill, which, I mean, this says that it's fiction, so I'm guessing that is what it's about, but it sounds very, very based in fact, and it covers 50 years of American history, I believe. So it touches on the 1968 Chicago riots, the 2008 financial crash, and the Occupy protests, sort of everything about America in the past 50 years, I think. I mean, it's a very big book, so it probably does fit a lot in there, and I think she enjoyed it. but also I think more was just very interested in what my thoughts would be on it. So this is a bit of a beast. I would really like to hear from you if you've read this, because I think last year, whenever this came out, it was sort of everywhere, and I heard a lot of people talk about it, and then since then I haven't heard very much about it, so I've forgotten, basically. I've forgotten what it's about. So if you could let me know in the comments, that'd be really cool. Then me and Will went to Edinburgh a couple of weekends ago, and while we were there we went to Armchair Books, which if you follow me on Instagram you will have seen many pictures of and probably bored of by now, but it was so lovely, really nice second-hand / antiquarian bookshop in Edinburgh. And I picked up Wide Sargasso Sea by Jean Rhys, and I haven't read this, which I feel almost embarrassed to say because I really enjoy Jane Eyre, and this, if you don't know, is a prequel / alternate point of view of Jane Eyre, and it's from the point of view of Bertha. I don't feel like is it possible to spoil Jane Eyre for people now? I don't know, but I won't anyway, just in case you haven't read Jane Eyre. But I normally don't like reading books which are expansions on original stories, which sounds like a very niche thing to not like, but I normally prefer people to let but works rest and not kind of try and carry on what an original author was doing. So for ages I wasn't that interested in this book, but oh my god, have I heard so many amazing things about it, and lots of people whose opinions I trust really loved it, and also just like Jean Rhys as a writer anyway, so I think I'm going to enjoy reading this. Next we have 2 books which were very kindly sent to me by Vintage, and I'm just looking forward to these. The first one is British by Afua Hirsch, which has actually just been longlisted for the Jalak Prize, which is a literary prize in the UK for BAME authors. And this just sounds really interesting. It says on the back, you're British, your parents are British, your partner, your children and most of your friends are British, so why do people keep asking where you're from? And this is a look at Britain and why we sort of have this self-denial about our colonial and imperial past, and why we don't understand why there are people that are non-white people in the UK and telling them to go home, and not really understanding that wider historical context of why we are as multicultural as we are. So I think this is going to be a bit similar to Rennie Eddo-Lodge's why I'm no longer talking to white people about race, not in terms of the way it's written, but in terms of the historical parts of that novel, where Rennie's looking at Britain's imperial past. I feel like there might be some overlap in this book, or at least perhaps going into some of those things a little bit more in depth and from a different perspective. And I also got sent My Year of Rest and Relaxation by Ottessa Mosfegh. I'm sorry, I hate it when I can't pronounce things. So Eileen, which came out a couple of years ago, if I don't know how long something is, it's always a couple of years, but it was longlisted, I believe, for the Women's Prize for Fiction, and I never actually got around to reading it because it wasn't shortlisted, and I heard lots of mixed things about it. This book I have heard nothing but absolute praise for, and it's about a woman who decides to take a year off from the world, essentially, mostly drugged, it sounds like, but just to stop and just to not be part of anything. So I don't know much more about it than that, and I presume that it's going to touch upon lots of different aspects and issues that we have in society. So I'm looking forward to reading it, because I think it's one of those books which is probably quite difficult to explain, which is why the blurb is quite vague. But because so many people have enjoyed it, I think there's obviously a little bit more meat on these bones than what first appears. Now I've got 2 books which I'm definitely going to read, one of them in March, and that is some Juliet Marillier. So a few months ago, me and Jean and Jill read Dreamer's Pool by Juliet Marillier as a little group, and we really enjoyed it, so we thought we would continue on with the series and read the second one in March, which is Tower of Thorns. And then I just thought, yeah, fine, I'll buy the third one as well. So I got Den of Wolves as well. So these are I think there's only 3. Well, we'll find out. The 3 books in the Blackthorn and Grimm series by Juliet Marillier. And Blackthorn and Grimm are 2 kind of released prisoners who have a bit of a murky past, and they're going around this world helping people. It feels very much, it is a fantasy world, but it feels like it could be medieval Ireland. I think that's where you're expected to presume that this is set. And what I really enjoyed about the first one is that it felt sort of within context, the world, but it also felt quite modern, looking at experiences of women within those kind of feudal and peasant societies. So I'm just really looking forward to seeing where this story goes and where Blackthorn and Grimm go. So I've got 2 books of them to read now. I hope I keep enjoying it. And finally, I just picked up some of the books that we have picked for the Feminist Orchestra this year. So these aren't books that I'm going to read right away, but these are books that I didn't have and we've decided we're going to read. So if you would like to join the Feminist Orchestra, or if you're interested in it at all, you can just watch the videos on mine or Jean's channel, which I'll link below, every other month. And you can also join the Goodreads group, which is also going to be linked below, and you can see all the discussions that people are having on the books that we pick. So these are books for later in the year, but I'm really excited about them. And this first one is Virgin Envy, which is different essays from different people, I believe, about the idea of virginity. And it says here, the cultural insignificance of the hymen. So I'm hoping to get a lot from this book. So I hope I'm not disappointed or I'm asking too much of it, but what I hope that this explores is the idea of virginity and purity and innocence and shame, and how it specifically relates to women and their bodies rather than to boys and men. So there's this one, and also Ursula K. Le Guin, The Left Hand of Darkness, which is some classic, not science fiction, I suppose. Is it science fiction or fantasy? Well, it says science fiction here. And this is part of the Science Fiction Masterworks series, so yeah, probably science fiction, which is about a planet where all of the people on the planet have no gender unless they decide to breed, and then they can choose which gender they are. So, you know, I know Jean's wanted to read this book for a really long time, and what I'm enjoying about these kind of projects and talking to other people is that Ursula K. Le Guin is obviously like a massive science fiction fantasy author, and I have never read anything by her, and I really want to push myself to like broaden my horizons and read some different things in different genres, because especially after reading the Juliet Marillier, I absolutely loved it. And I used to really love reading fantasy books when I was kind of a teenager, until I thought perhaps it wasn't cool. So I stopped doing it and was like, I'm just going to read literary fiction now because, you know, genre books are for, I don't know, teenagers, children, I don't know what I thought. But I'm really enjoying just indulging it and finding some really good writing as well. So I think this is going to be, for me personally, this is going to be a good read on many different levels, but I hope everybody else enjoys it as well. So that's what I have coming up to read. I would love to hear from you, as always, if you have read any of these books and what you think of them, which ones you really enjoyed and you think I should read first, because, you know, we all suffer from having too many choices on what to read and wanting to read everything now. So if you could give me some guidance, that'd actually probably be quite helpful. All of these books will be linked in the description box below if you would like to check them out any further, as with all my links and other things you might be interested in. So have a look if you like, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!